Greetings, lords and ladies, and welcome to Game Masters Tavern episode 2, in which I will talk to you about adventures in general and running your very first gaming session. Now, before I go into the whole adventure stuff, first a few tips and ideas about running your very first session, or running gaming sessions in general. As a rule of thumb, you should plan enough time to have about 3 to 4 hours worth of gameplay. Add to that about an hour and a half for food and small talk. You guys haven't seen each other for a while in most cases, so there's always something to talk about. Your favorite game, video game, some movie stuff, you know, real life stuff that people are interested in. And that always takes some time, and you should really let your players have a little talk, you know, just to get it out of the way. Also, role-playing can be rather exhausting. People have to concentrate for a good amount of time, and people have to imagine things. You will need to either have a food break during the game, maybe some, you know, snacks you can eat while gaming, or you know, just have a little eating session before you start playing. You will have to give your players something to do, and that is generally called an adventure, or you know, you can just use gaming session if you will. It's something to be achieved by the players, a common goal the group has to reach for some reason or another. So basically, the easiest way to go at this and to look at this is to buy a commercial adventure or to use a starting adventure. Many rule books have starting adventures, introductory adventures within their pages. And also you should be able, if you're not playing some very obscure role-playing game, to find some starting level adventures for your game in your shop, in your hobby shop basically. They are a good place to start. Or you could create your own adventure from scratch. Whatever you do, I think you should be aware of the basics of how adventures work in a role-playing game. Basically, you have 4 different kinds of content in a challenge, in a gaming session, in an adventure. You could diversify it more, but for this introductory videos, I'll keep it simple. I'll keep it at 4 different kinds. Basically, what you have is you have the role playing itself, playing the characters. You have the you have riddles, you know, some sorts of mental challenges, some sort of puzzles, something players have to overcome without having to fight. Then of course you have combat, which is basically self-explaining, and you have what was the last one? I actually made my notes as any chance to do. Oh yeah, of course, exploration. Never forget exploration. So again, we have role-playing, we have riddles, we have exploration, we have combat. That's just how I call them. You don't have to call it like that. An adventure should have at least 2 of those components. 3 if you can. If you can squeeze all 4 of them into one gaming session, very good. But you might run risk of, you know, putting too much stuff into one little bag. It might be just too much for the players to handle in the, you know, frame of one gaming session. Which brings me to another point that I might talk about in a few minutes if I still have the time at the end of the video. An adventure does not have to end at one gaming session. You can have an adventure running for 2-3 gaming sessions. If you run more than that, it's turning into a campaign. And campaigns will be talked about later on, but not in the early videos. Let's go through the different, through the 4 different types of actions, basically, your player can have and can experience in an adventure. First, like I said, role playing. This is not just the players. Well, basically, it starts out with the players playing their characters. Depending on which gaming system you use and which background you use, players should have at least a certain, image of what their characters are supposed to be, or how their characters are supposed to be in any given situation. So it is important to give characters, or give players the opportunity to play their characters in social situations. If you have a rogue or thief of some sort, he will try to steal things, and that's cool. That's perfectly valid. Warrior might, look for might boast a lot or look for a challenge, some arm wrestling of sorts. It really depends on the characters your players rolled and your players came up with. And to give them someone to talk to, you are the one who runs the NPCs, the non-player characters. So make sure you have a little bit of interaction prepared for your characters, for your players. For example, even if it's just a bit of background information about your world, maybe some rumors. It's just a few things players can find out through role playing. Just a little interaction, especially if you at the beginning of the adventure, if you're recruiting the players for their quest, for the challenge ahead. That's always a good role playing opportunity. Someone comes up to the group and says, "Hey, I have something for you to do. How about it?" For a beginning adventure, you should keep things simple. Simple plots would include something like some simple story hooks, like, "Oh yeah, someone's been kidnapped or someone's missing and you'll have to rescue them," or "Oh, there's a caravan going from place A to place B and someone has to guard it." Also, characters do not have to necessarily know each other from the beginning of the adventure itself. So have people tell each other about their characters. So have their characters talk to each other, get to know each other. And you'll have enough role playing to get you over the first few nights, basically. First few sessions. Next one is riddles. Riddles, like I said, they can be actual riddles. They can be puzzles of sorts. Mental challenges. Something for people to use their imagination, to grab without having to fight it. Again, in style with keeping things simple, the best way to do it at the beginning is to give them some sort of locked door. And they cannot pass before they, crack the riddle, crack the puzzle, crack the password needed to go through it. Unlocking things, always very good opportunity to crack riddles. Or it also blends a bit into the next thing, exploration. If you have a little riddle that tells people where to find something or some place, it's also a little mental challenge and it's fun for your players. Which, like I said, goes into the next thing, exploration. Doesn't matter if you're in a dungeon, if you're in the woods, if you're in a city, even in a skyscraper or starbase. Have your players look for something. Have them running around in some place. It's always important to give your players choices. If you have a dungeon, that's very easy. You have a couple of rooms. Draw a little simple map. Nothing big. Just a few rooms, and they can go left, they can go right. They are exploring, they are finding out. Describe the scenery. Give them something to find. If they're in the woods, give them some, glades or maybe some sort of, overgrown, abandoned villages. Just something to find, something to picture in their head, something to imagine. And if you combine it with riddles, when they're looking, the classical treasure hunt, basically. You can really have them you know, really have them do something for a lot, for a long time. And the last thing, some see it as the most important thing, some don't like it at all. Combat. Role-playing games are, for most part, always action-oriented at a certain point. Having combat is this action part. I mean, some games like Dungeons and Dragons, they're basically hack and slays. They do a lot of combats just as part of the gaming system. Other things like Vampire the Masquerade do not have a lot of combats, and they are, when there's combat, it's short and it's bloody and it's dangerous and deadly for the players. For a beginning, don't use combat too much. It can get very boring. Unless you really want to do a dungeon hack, which is basically, you go from room to room and hack at the monster groups in there. And your adventures or gaming sessions should, maybe optimally they end with some sort of boss fight. It could be a one boss monster or a certain group of opponents that have to be taken out, or you can combine it with some sort of riddle. You have some opponent you have to fight, but in order to weaken him, you have to find his weak spot, or even to be able to defeat him at all, you have to find, to solve the riddle, to find out how it's done, basically. That's always very satisfying, especially towards the end of a gaming session, when people have been concentrating for a long time. Just to, ease the tension a bit that's built up till then. And yeah, there you go. That's basically all. That's really all you will need to know and need to have for your first gaming sessions. You need some basic story hook to get them going, something for the group to do, something that has to be done by a group. It should maybe involve some sort of travel, changing places. That keeps things interesting. And apart from that, try to include 2 to 3 of the 4 different components I mentioned, which again, role-playing, riddles, exploration and combat. And apart from that, especially if it's really your first session or if you're inexperienced, just let things happen. Players have a way to find their own way, have a habit of just doing what they want, basically. So prepare some basic stuff, be prepared for whatever your players throw at you, and apart from that, as always, have fun. And the most important rule as a game master when running a gaming session, and I maybe should have started out with this. As a game master, it is very easy to try to work against the group, but that's not what you're there for. You do not play against the players, you play with them. Every challenge you give them is something that should be, again, challenging to overcome, but absolutely within the reach and within the possibilities of the gamers. You are there to keep it challenging but interesting for everyone involved, including yourself. In the next video, I will be talking about using maps and floor tiles in your games and in your campaigns. Apart from that, I'll see you around and have fun gaming.